Yay, here we go. Whoa, we're live. What's up, Dean?
How are you, Mr. Pickle?
I am fantabulous.
As pickles are. I know you
They
enjoy
are
a good salty pickle now and again.
especially from those old pickle barrels in the deli when
Yeah.
you were a kid, you know.
And all the greasy-handed little brats would
Oh,
stick
yeah.
their diseased fingers down in there and
No
dip
such
out the bottom
thing as
one.
latex gloves or tongs. No. You're bobbing for pickles. Some people would just right your face right in.
That is true. Bobbing for pickles. I mean, that was
Right in the barrel.
There you go.
Cracker Barrel.
Bobbing for pickles. I mean, I'm just all of the off-color jokes running through my brain right now are just so titillating. I can barely contain myself. But contain myself I will. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. This is the Jim and Dean Show. Two fellas talking about copy as men do.
As we do.
And today we have a very interesting topic. But before we get to the topic, we just want to wish everybody hello. And please give us a like, a comment, a share, tag a friend, do something to help us get a little bit of extra juice from the Zucky Poo gods inside of Facebook. Or if you're joining us on Periscope, or perhaps even joining us on YouTube, please say hi, say hello. Tell us what your favorite color of underwear is. Whatever you need to do to express yourself, we're interested. Right, Dean? Are we ready to go?
I feel like I'm on my way to heaven.
That's right. Well, I'm just gonna not do. Okay, I'm pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
Remember that movie with
The angels got their horns, their French horns out.
What's up, Malcolm? Glad you're here. What was that name? Heaven Can Wait. Did that have
Warren Beatty?
Warren Beatty.
It was so good. That was a great movie, and Julie Christie.
And what was the team? What was the football team he played for at the end?
Oh man, see, there's trivia I couldn't. What was it?
I believe it was the Rams.
Was it the Rams?
I believe it was the Rams. Hey, Catherine. Thanks for encouraging my procrastination. You're not procrastinating. You're just learning in a different direction. So there you go. Void Tech is here. I hope I'm saying that right. I think it's Void Tech. So glad you're here too. No, this isn't. Let me tell you something. Paying attention to other people, that's procrastinating. Jumping on with Dean and myself in a Streamyard, that's one of the smartest things you could do in your business. I mean, that's actually looking your children straight in the eye and saying, you know what, honey? I love you. I love you enough to learn from the best. So, hey, that was a pretty good spin, right, Dean?
Man, that was good. You should be a lobbyist.
I could be a lobbyist. Somebody asked, how are you finding StreamYard? Is it better than Zoom? I think so. What do you think, Dino?
I like it. It's really clean. It's interfaced. The one thing that I've had problem with, and I don't know if this is me, but the green screen has a tendency. If I use green screen, I have a tendency to lag on StreamYard. I don't have that on Zoom.
Okay. You know why I think that is, and this is where I'm getting kind of super geeky, but I think it's because on Zoom, the green screen is processed locally, whereas the green screen in StreamYard is happening on the cloud. So I think that's what's causing it. That's the only thing I can think of. And just remember, we got to pay some bills. So if you don't have a copy of Copywriting Secrets yet, you should. It's the web's #1 best, most amazing, scrumdiddlyumptious book on how to write copy to get more clicks, sales, and profits, no matter what you sell or who you sell it to. Available for free at copywritingsecrets.com. Just pay a small shipping and handling.
Yeah. So I'm gonna add something here, and it's gonna make Jim's head swell a little bigger than it already is, and which he doesn't need. But Jim's gonna love this. So yesterday, Jim and I did, along with a woman, did a copy review of
a woman. She has a name.
She's Valle, Jessie Valle, who is the lead team lead for funnel building at ClickFunnels. And we were reviewing a gentleman's funnel who it's been up for less than 2 weeks, and he read Copywriting Secrets 7 times, and he's made $100,000 in less than 2 weeks from the principles and all the great content that's in Jim's book. And he said that right on the air, right?
He sure did
in our presentation.
This is not an income claim. Your results may vary, but yeah, that was pretty cool. That was actually
very cool.
Yes. Thank you, Dean. Thank you for tooting my horn, Dean, in a manly way.
It felt manly. It really did.
All right.
There was no weakness. It was all alpha, all confidence, arrogance, no humility.
There you go. There you go. So let's answer a question that came from a longtime viewer, first time caller, who asked, how do I know if my copy is enough? How do I know if I'm going on too long or I'm repeating myself? And that's a question that I have to say I kind of struggle with too. How much is enough? How much is too much? How much is just right? I was showing you some copy that I wrote today for something we're going to be releasing. And, it's weird. Those of us that write copy, it's like when we see copy, then we want to rewrite it, and we want to rewrite other people's stuff, and we want to rewrite our own, especially if it's stuff you did a while back. You're like, what was I even doing, man? How in the hell could that have even sold anything? I'm surprised I'm not living in a van body down by the river, washing my shoes and socks in the muddy banks of the Pascagoula or whatever.
The LA canals.
Oh man, during dry season.
Under an overpass.
Exactly. So I will let you answer the question first. And those of you who are with us live, please feel free to chime in, ask questions as well. Hey, Katie Louise Dury, how are you? Looks like she's in her car. Yeah. And Paul said that this was a great question. Paul's joining us from YouTube, as is Jonas. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts? How do you know is enough, not enough, too much, repeating yourself? What?
Well, first, I like the question because I had to really stop and think, because we always ask ourselves, even as copywriters, how long is long enough? And I think a lot of it is a function of who you are, what you want to put out to the world, your personality. If you've got, you can look at it. Okay, how long is too long in an email? How long is too long on a landing page? How long is too long in a sales letter? How long is too long in a Facebook ad? And you can see there's everything from just a couple lines of something to pages and see more, and it scrolls out. As long as Mr. Wizard,
yes,
you're able and capable of keeping your audience engaged to read from beginning to middle to end, you're doing okay. I don't think there's any fast rule as to how long or how short something should be. It just needs to be, are you delivering value? Are you compelling? Are you telling a story that's engaging? Are you keeping the audience eyeballs on your copy? And your audience is going to be the one to answer it. Not everybody's going to, be attracted to what you have to write, but that's okay. I mean, both Jim and I have pretty strong personalities. So there's going to be people who are attracted to us, and there are people going to be repelled by us.
And then there are people that are weird.
That's right. The in-betweeners.
The tweens.
The tweeners.
So is that kind of your answer?
It is my answer. And, it has to do with something that you and I are working on right now, where we have 3 choices of something, and they're all different lengths depending on who uses it and who their audience is, who they're marketing to, right?
Right. No, I'm with you.
So I'll give an example. So I had a client that I worked on for over the weekend, and he wanted a sales letter for a live event. Yes, he's doing a live event in this very goofy time that we're having, but
an in-person live event?
Yes, it's an in-person live event.
Wow.
Very surprising, social distancing, but it's going to be an in-person live event because it's a popular event he does like a couple times a year, and he sells out and he wants to do it. So I started to write and I thought, okay, this will be, so as a copywriter, I think how many words this is going to be? I thought it would be about 1,900 words. It's a 3-day boot camp. And I just kept going. I'm going, oh, this, I need to put this in here. I need to cover this. Because in my head, I'm thinking overcoming objections, because every time you write or create something, you solve a problem. But when you solve a problem, you also open up a can of worms because there's going to be another problem. Anytime, that's true with any product that we buy or create. If you buy a product, it's going to create. If you buy aspirin, it could have side effects. You're getting aspirin to get rid of your headache, but that aspirin could be like, oh man, my stomach bleeding, right?
Yeah.
You got these side effects. You're creating another problem. So that's what I'm always thinking in my head, is just to continually solve a problem. So it went from 1,700 words to like a 3,800, this really long sales letter. The client was very happy with it, but I thought, I think I did an okay job answering all the objections that the audience might have.
So I think of it, and that was a great explanation. And I'm going to build on that a little bit from my perspective. So how much sales copy do you need? The number one thing I think about, what am I asking somebody to do? Mm-hmm. And the less barrier to entry, typically the less sales copy you need. So if you give an example, let's do a couple ends of the spectrum. So like a lead generation funnel, a lead capture funnel, something where you're just trying to get somebody's email and you've got a good handle on the target market and you know what they want. You can pretty much offer them something with a headline, a graphic, a blurb, and a call to action.
And something of value for free, right?
And something of value for free. And that's what I meant by the graphic. The graphic represents the thing you're going to get. I mean, the piece of software. I like to use software. Other people use info. Other people use a checklist. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever the audience that you're going after is interested in. So that's one end of the spectrum. Now, the other end of the spectrum, from my perspective, one of the hardest sales you'll do is to try and get people to go on a cruise. Okay, when we do the gym boat, you're not only trying to get people to show up for a live event, but you're trying to get people to show up for a live event where they're going to see internationally for 7 days. They're going to get on a boat and they're, in my mind, it's like, woohoo, we're getting on a cruise ship. We're going to have some fun and it's going to be amazing. But other people know, man, I'm going to be trapped on a boat for 7 days. What if I don't have a good time? What if it sucks? What about this? What about that? And so that requires a lot more information, a lot more to just address, as you say, everybody's objections or their problem or something. And I guess the way I've always looked at it is I envision it as a conversation, or an actual conversation with an individual person. And so, for example, like the freebie, say, hey, basically the thing is, give me your email address and I'll give you access to this piece of software that I would normally sell for $100. And be like, oh, and it does this, 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 and this. And they're like, oh crap, yeah, I'll give it to you. I mean, if I was just talking to you, okay. Mm-hmm. But now if we were having a conversation about going on the gym boat, it would be like, hey, I'm getting ready to do a really special event for 7 days. It's going to be life-changing. It's on this topic, and you're going to learn this, 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 and this. Now, let me tell you more about it, because I'm sure you're wondering. Here's where it's going to go. Here's what you're going to learn. Here are the payoffs. Here's some things you might be wondering about: meals, about travel, about excursions, about ports of call, about getting to and from the boat, about who else is going to be there, the types of people, what kinds of things we'll do when we're not in class, what types of things you should bring with you. And finally, let me tell you why this is such a great deal, because you don't have to pay for meals. If you go to a conference at a hotel, you got to pay for your hotel. You got to pay for your meals. You got to pay for your entertainment. You're stuck in the hotel where it's boring and it's dull and there's nothing exciting going on. And normally you never even get out and do anything, as a contrast with a cruise where everything's included. We're going to give you these really cool t-shirts. You're going to be able to have amazing time, parties, ports of call, one-on-one time with me, the chance to eat dinner with me or lunch with me, all these different things. And so that takes a longer conversation to sell somebody on something that's either more expensive or a more complicated sale, or just if you were thinking about talking to an individual who, especially if they didn't know you, or even if they did know you, you still have to explain what's going on and why it's in their best interest to take advantage of it and what their objections might be, and just head those off at the pass. Does that make sense?
Yep. The more hoops you have to jump through, kind of, then the more copy.
The more copy you're going to need. Yeah.
Right. And it's the same. We could compare it to, here's a freebie, or if I have a $500 or $1,000 or a $1,500 product to sell, what would be the best way to sell it? Well, a webinar, because you're asking people to buy something that is, there's more of an investment, not only in money, but in time, energy, resources, things they have to put aside and not do. And then you're asking them, you need a little more, you're asking them to invest more time with you, right? For the bigger the sale.
But also not necessarily, I think it might be, when you say the bigger the sale, to some cases, it might be the more complicated the sale. Like you said, the hoops you have to jump through, because I've made the decision to buy something like a server. I bought a server, or access to a server, that ultimately is costing me about $4,000 a year. Made that decision in about 5 minutes with about 5 lines of copy, as opposed to something that might only cost a couple $100, but I need to really get a ton of information in order to decide if it's worth my time or not.
Okay. So there's a good point you just made there.
It's not just price point that determines the length of copy.
It also depends on the predisposition of the target audience. So you already predisposed. You knew you needed a server. You knew that.
A specific type of server.
Right. So inside, and this is key because this has to do with length of copy. So if I knew Jim wanted a server, I could probably say, hey, send him an email with a subject line and a couple lines of copy and say, hey, I got a server. It's this much. You're going to get this much storage space. Your load time is going to be instantaneous. It's totally secure. It's $4,000 annual. Jim's in. Now, if I were sending that same email to a group of people who I'm going, yeah, they're techie. I know they have their own systems, but I have to do more selling because they're not over the fence yet. They haven't made the decision. And that has to do with customer, the Eugene Schwartz customer awareness. How ready are they? How aware are they of what's out there? How much education do they need to be sold?
Right.
You didn't need any education to be sold. You were already sold. You were just looking for the right
solution.
Product.
The right solution.
You already knew the solution. You just needed the right product, which is the highest you can get. It's like an Apple. When's the next Apple iPhone coming out? I know that product's coming out. When is it? I'm sold.
Right. And that's a good point. So Paul asked a good question related to this. He said, can it depend on if it's more of a soft sell or if you're actually talking to Fred, who's very interested in anything on the topic? So for those of you who don't know, Fred is the acronym for your avatar inside of the Copywriting Secrets book. And that's your ideal customer. That's secret number 8 on page 59, by the way. And if you'd like to know what Fred stands for, you can get a copy of the book free at copywritingsecrets.com. And then you'll know exactly what Fred stands for. So I think that the plus we always just like to call him Fred. I think that's a function also of traffic temperature. So if people know who you are and people know what your products are, and there's just a general awareness level, like funnel scripts. All right. People in the ClickFunnels world have heard of funnel scripts. And so now it's just a question of, when are you ready to buy funnel scripts? When are you ready? What's going to be the little bit of copy that's going to put you over the top? Right. As opposed to, Jonas said, Fred is my homeboy. Nice. So as opposed to someone who has no awareness about it at all, it's just totally cold. So that goes along with just what you said, with the education curve and how educated they are and stuff. So a soft sell definitely would be more, in my mind, what you mean by the soft sell thing is just there's already a lot of awareness on the part of the audience. So you don't have to do nearly as much. That's, to me, what soft sell would mean.
So, and I don't know if I took this question, how, exactly what you mean. So I'm looking at, let's say you're sending out an email. Mm-hmm. And about, you've got a new promotion. So most of the body of that copy in the email is going to be a sell. Now, so it could be if you mean the tone of the letter is soft sell, like, hey, you might have this problem and this, and I just thought I'd mention it. I've got something that might help you, right? You're not just saying, go get this, click here now. There's urgency, there's scarcity. That would be more of a hard sell and direct sell. And then there's something of, you're bringing up a point, a problem. You might be agitating the problem. And it's just like, hey, you use the word if, right? If you're having an issue and you're interested in it and you want to check it out, well, here's a link. Right. So I don't know.
More like a stealth. So more like the first one's like a pre-frame, a hard pre-frame, a hard pre-sell type thing to get them amped up.
It's a command to go here, do this, which is more hard sell. And I just want to get clarification if that's what Paul meant by a soft sell, because I also see soft sell, Jim, is underneath a signature where you can say, oh, hey, if you haven't gotten your copy of my new book, Copywriting Secrets, go here.
By the way,
if you really want your copy written for you, here's funnel scripts. And it's a mention that's got really nothing to do with the body of an email, but it's a soft sell.
Right. We call that the stealth close. But that's, you're absolutely right. To me, that's more of a soft sell. But again, that's also going to depend on, by the time somebody has read an article or watched a video where you are making that mention, or read an email, probably not an email teaser, but more of like a content-driven email, they're starting to go from cold to a little bit warmer. They've been pre-framed with something. Mm-hmm. You're not just going to walk up to a stranger and say, hey, by the way, if you want to watch, I got one. You know what I mean? You know, when you're out there with your overcoat and you open it up in front of folks in public, you've done that, right, Dean?
Twice a week.
That's right. I always have bail money on.
I lived in Manhattan for years, so I know that guy. I know the 3-card Monty. Hey, you want to buy a watch? The guy stopping and they got a van. They see you walking by. They open up the back of the van and they bring out. Hey, they're looking around. I've been there because it was my dad.
Wow, was it really?
No.
Oh, okay.
That is the farthest thing from my dad.
Damn. Now, the second part of the question, though, was how do I know if I'm repeating myself or I am repeating myself? And the inference from the question on that was that's a bad thing. And it's a bad, when you talk about repeating yourself in your copy, there's one thing, there's a principle. I may or may not say this right. That's why it took me a while to write the book. And that is, people tend to hang on to the last thought that they had before they make a decision. And so when you're explaining stuff, that's great. You're like, when you get rid of somebody's objection, kind of washes that away, so they're not worried about it anymore. You don't have to remind them we got rid of that objection. Once the objection's gone,
Right.
it's pretty much gone. You don't have to come back to it. In fact, you don't want to come back to it and remind them, oh, you had this objection and now, oh, well, maybe that's still an issue. No, you don't want to do that. Once you've overcome the objection, you move on. But when it comes time to go for the close, you need to remind people, you need to repeat, you need to summarize, you need to stack again what you're going to get and remind them. So just to sum this up, just, to start wrapping this up, here's a summary of everything you're going to get. You can do that verbally. You can do it in writing. You can even do it with pictures. Here's everything you're going to get and why it's such a great deal. And so let's go ahead and do this. But if you don't do that kind of a repeat, that kind of a summary, that kind of a circle back around, it will kill your response, because nobody's going to remember what the heck they're buying if you don't. That's why you see on really great sales copy, you see that order, you see that summary of here's everything you're going to get. Now, on the flip side, I've seen some, and I've done it myself, because we fall in love with our own words and our own voice and our own everything. We tend to repeat, you will repeat yourself. And sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. If you're saying the same thing over and over and over, it's a bad thing. But if there's a really important point that you want to say a couple of different ways to make sure you're getting your point across, that's okay. One of the things that I like to do to see, though, if I'm repeating myself so much, because it's hard when you've got something long, I'll ask people that I trust to read it. I will, if it's text, I'll read it out loud. If it's video, I will get it transcribed and read it. So whatever the modality is that it's in, I'll switch it to another modality and go through it to try to catch where I'm repeating myself. I'm taking too many words to say the same thing, and just overall having too much fluff in there. That's how I try and get around that. What are your thoughts, Dean?
Well, yeah. I'm looking at, when you talked about the stack, there are also, so if you're looking at the structure of the perfect webinar, there's also a summation of, if you're talking, let's say you're going to be talking about 3 secrets. So you mentioned the 3 secrets up at the top. I'm going to be talking here. I'm going to be sharing 3 secrets with you. And then you list them in the middle of, when you start to get in from after the introduction, and you start to say, okay, here I'm going to start teaching I'm going to start sharing the content of this. You're naming the 3 secrets, and then you're listing them. Okay, you go, here's secret number 1, talk about that. Secret number 2, talk about that. And then you wrap it up by saying, okay, here's what we just covered. Then you repeat the 3 secrets, because like Jim said, people are just going to remember the last thing that you told them. And all of this stuff is important. It's the copy and the messaging that you're delivering is it's deliberate, and you need to reinforce. So this is where repetition is working in your favor 100%, where you're not going too far, but you just want to keep bringing people back, why they're here. Here's what we learned, right? Yeah. This is what we covered. And then here's why we learned all this, because here's how it's going to help you. And I have something that's really going to help you when you start transitioning into the pitch, where we can take this further and we can dive deeper. And this is something that you can use right in your home. If it's a study course that's going to take you from where you are now to where you want to be. Right. And then, like Jim said, you're going through that repetition of the stack again, and all that the repetition it's for reinforcement.
Yeah. But you don't want to keep going round and round and round and round.
There has to be a purpose behind everything.
Yeah. One thing you can also do, and this is a topic for another day, to keep people paying attention and engaged in your copy, because I think that's one of the reasons why you keep repeating yourself, is because you're like, this is important, this is important, this is important. You're in your mind, you're pleading with people to understand how important this is. One of the things that you can do is to open loops in your copy that will serve kind of the same purpose you're trying to raise awareness. And one way to raise awareness and shock people out of their hypnosis is by opening loops. So if you say, now, one of the most important things that you can learn about investing in real estate is how to use other people's money, because that enables you to leverage multiple properties instead of just one where you're scraping up money on your credit cards. And in a couple of minutes, I'm going to talk to you about 5 different ways that you can raise money, even if you have no money of your own. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about how to identify the best properties that you're going to want to find. We have a specific, so I mean, it's like, whoa, I've opened that loop. I have done a little dopamine dump on them because they're like, oh, I can buy more than one property by using other people's money. Hang on. I want to know more about that. But he's right. I need to know what kind of properties to buy first. But I'm paying attention so I can see this next thing that I want. And then you get to the other thing about how to identify properties. And we've actually put together an entire blueprint of 15 different types of properties that you can get, or the 15 different characteristics of an ideal property. Let me share 2 of them with you right now. So now I've given you value. I've opened a loop. So now that we've talked about that, let's get back to the financing. Now, there are 5 different ways. The one that people typically use is bank financing. There's nothing wrong with it. Borrowing money from the bank's a great thing to do. If you can get a line of credit on your own house, that's a great way to do it. There are also hard money lenders and others. We can show you how to find those people. And lastly, there's so much you can do to compensate for where I believe the repetition comes from, is just trying to make people pay attention. Whereas if you use open loops, you can have them sitting on, you can have them a nervous wreck by the end of your sales copy, waiting for you to close all these loops with your product. And I think that's one of the reasons of why we do it, is to try and keep attention. Dean?
Well, yes, the brain needs to get those questions answered on an open loop. It won't let go. So we're hardwired that way. When we hear something like that, or you say, I'm going to show you the answer to this, and then you don't deliver it right away, and it's what the audience wants, they're going to be leaning in until you get to it. And they may even be leaning in to the point where they're not even paying attention to anything else you're saying until they get to it. And that's when you got a buyer.
Yeah. Well, and you can also hurt yourself with that, though. So you got to be careful.
So there's a question. I just saw that.
Katie asked a good question. Do you ever embellish to make stories more interesting? So can I answer that first, or do you
go right ahead?
Okay. No, I'm going to answer first, because I have any story about you that is germane to like a case study or justification or something along those lines. We never embellish. You can tell a story in a way that makes it extremely interesting when you understand how to tell a good story. Mm-hmm. But I take the word, especially since you put it in quotes, embellish, like air quotes. Do you ever embellish a story? And the answer to that is, in those kinds of stories, like case studies, no. If you're telling a funny story just as an anecdote or something that's just fun, like talking about the time that Dean went on vacation with my wife on a cruise ship, that could be, we could embellish that or mess with you a little bit. It's actually Dean went on the gym boat.
Left out of that little
exactly. Dean went on the gym boat. I went on a vacation with Dean, and we brought my wife along. Depending on our market, that could be a more titillating hook. So if it's something fun where it's just a fun conversational thing, embellishing it by playing it up or being playful, I think is fine. But we never misrepresent anything material to the sale or anything that could be misconstrued or taken the wrong way that would misrepresent. What are your thoughts, Dean?
I agree. I don't lie. Don't make stuff up. There's no need to. It's up to you to be thoughtful and creative, to sit down and look at something where youth might think is the most boring thing. But if you were to honestly look at all the elements that go into that story in terms of the environment, people involved, the thoughts that going through your head, that's what people are going to be interested in. You're going to be way, way more bored with your stuff than your audience will ever be.
Right.
And that's one of the things too. And I know Russell says this a lot. You're going to be telling the same stories in your copy, in your marketing, over and over and over again. You're going to get way, way sick of it faster than your audience will. And even if you're telling it for the first time, you start, I like to look at the word embellished, and I'll use my word, nuance. Is adding nuance, is adding some flavor to a story, right? The little details, we love the details, and they are not boring. And that's different than getting flowery and way over the top. Because look, Jim and I are just here chatting and talking. We're not embellishing at all. We're having a conversation. So take your conversation that's going on in your head, Katie, and put it out there. If it's on a podcast or a Facebook Live or in an email and a text and a blog, whatever it is, and put it out to your audience. And if your audience responds to it, you go, whoa, I didn't need to embellish anything.
Yeah.
Right, Donut Head?
I think it just comes down to how you tell the damn story.
Donnie Donut.
Donnie Donut. Honestly, though, it comes down to being good at telling the story.
Yeah.
Because you can have, think about the last time you went to dinner with a couple and they're both trying to sell the story. They're both trying to tell the story. And one person says, it wasn't any big deal. It was no big deal. It was just this and this and this. And the other one's like, no, you are not going to believe what happened. Let me set the stage for you. Okay. So here we are. That's the level that you want to tell the story. It's like when it's something that's going to be persuaded, be that person that's all animated and setting the stage, and the way you tell the story will be infectious. On the flip side, if you got to own up to a story that's not all that great, then take a page from every politician's playbook, which is no big deal, nothing to see here. There's nothing. It was no big deal. And then just keep saying that over and over, and you'll be good. Let's do one more question, and then we got to wrap it up.
The one that just came out. Yeah. What advice do you have for those starting out with emailing their lists? Worried my copy is full.
What do you mean by dull? Oh, dull, not full. I'm like, whoa, easy now. Dull.
So, Joe, I'm going to ask a very direct question. Are you a boring person? Do people think you're boring?
Damn.
Well,
that's harsh, Dean. That's the kind of thing Mr. Pickle asks. Hey, Joe, are you boring? Do you make paint want to dry? What? Come on, let us know.
So you think that, and be honest. There's no ego involved here.
Joe's picture doesn't look boring. She looks like a nice person.
Yeah. So
she says, ha. I guess she's half funny.
So just write. No, great. Write from, be who you are. Just put it out there and write about one thing. Don't go all over the board. Start about one thing. What point do you want to make? What is that one idea that you want to get across? And think about, okay, how do I convey that? Yeah. And you don't have to make anything up.
What's the emotion
in your life?
What's the emotion I want the other person to feel? That's the question I ask. How do I want them to feel at the end of this story? And that's going to dictate how you tell the story, the details you include, the details you leave out, how much detail you go into in certain areas.
So I will say this, Joe, is that for your audience, the more vulnerable you are, the more you show your faults, your scrapes, your bruises, the things that have gone wrong in your life, and the more you share those and maybe how you handled them, and maybe you didn't even handle them that gracefully or anything, that's going to get people clamoring for more.
With one important caveat. That's how we say caveat down here in the swamps. Caveat. And that is, no one wants to hear a sad sack story without a happy ending. We are not French filmmakers, okay? The dog does not die and then we end the damn film, okay? Even in Old Yeller, I think they got a new puppy at the end.
It's got to have a payoff.
It's got to have a payoff. Otherwise, it just plain sucks. So that's the thing. Nobody cares about your story. Nobody cares about your struggle until they can see the happy ending at the end.
What's the application, right?
And what does it mean to them? What's the moral of the story?
What is the point of telling the story?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's you learned a lesson from it. Something happened to you, but you came out of it on the other side because you had an epiphany.
Right.
So you went from down here to here.
Right. And typically you're going to go from here down to here, then down to here, then down on the floor. Then something happens and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get this figured out until finally get back to even where you were. And then you transcend it. And that's what everybody wants to know about, is the transcendence. All right. So we had one last one, which is pretty good because I love this question. I've seen this before. Katie says, thanks guys. I feel like I've lived a fairly charmed life. And so thinking of any bad stuff is hard for the Epiphany Bridge. So here's the thing. I'm not typically, I have to really think about framing stuff in a way that's bad. I mean, I've been through stuff you just would not believe, but guess what? Everybody's been through stuff. And if you haven't been through stuff, you know people who've been through stuff. So if you can't find your own hard times, there are other people who've been through hard times. You can tell other people's stories, either change the details so that you're protecting the innocent, or you just tell it from the standpoint of a third party, or I'm going to tell you about a friend of mine, or I'm going to tell you about a
family member,
a
breakup, a bad a relationship that went through really rough times, or
I mean, and the other thing you can do is tell the story of the customer. So the Epiphany Bridge comes from seeing other people suffering, seeing other people go through this, and saying to myself, my God, I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, I got to help these people. There's so much pain in the world. I mean, if you look at what Tony Robbins does with a lot of his stuff, that's exactly what his does. He does. It's like, I mean, there's so much pain in the world. I need to make a difference. I need to make a change.
Yeah. And I just want to say, if your life is that good, I'm coming to live with you.
Whoa, 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 whoa. We're going to tell your wife about this?
She'd be all for it. She's very cool.
I'm coming to Dean because I bet Katie's an awesome cook. Because if you got a charmed life, I know you're a good cook. All right. Well, that's what I've got. How about you, Dean? Any final words for the folks?
No, boy, I didn't. I thought it would be a short discussion, and I don't even think we finished on that topic.
We never have a short discussion, man. We just like light that firecracker and let's see what it does. So hopefully you all enjoyed it. Please, before you leave, there are like 25 people here live and only 14 likes and hearts. Please, come on, hit the like button. Don't be that weird friend. That's like come on now. That's like coming over and watching my TV and not even saying thanks before you leave. Please hit the like button, hit the mad button, I'll even take the huggy button. But give us a like, give us a tag, whatever and see, look at me, Dean. Do I know people? Katie says I am, actually. She's a great cook. I'm telling you. You can't have a wonderful life and not have a great cook in your life.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't, but my wife is an amazing cook. So there you go. Well,
perfect.
Dino, if people want to get in touch with you and have you write some amazing copy for them, how would they get in touch with you?
One Big Idea Marketing at Gmail. And that's the numeral 1.
That's the number 1. That's right. Couple things to tell everybody. If you don't have a copy of Copywriting Secrets yet, you need one. Head on over to copywritingsecrets.com. Grab your free copy. Just pay a small shipping and handling. Make sure you pick up all the upsells too. Also, if you are not a member of our Facebook group, the Sales Copywriting Content Marketing Hacks, you should be, because we do all kinds of cool stuff over in there, answer questions, and have a rollicking time, Dino.
rollicking. We rollick together, don't we?
Yes, we do. I would not miss out on that horn for
We
anything.
rollick on command. So
Right.
appreciate everybody.
And we will talk to you again soon. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.